I have a feeling we're going to have a hard time finding an edge in this game with where the lines remain.
Yeah, basically have not moved at all from the other day. I think it's 1 point on the total, maybe, but other than that, that's it. And no offense to the Broncos, Patriots, and their respective fans, but I am much more looking forward to this game, even though there may not be very much of an edge in game lines. But it's the battle in Seattle, if you will, the title game for the best in the West. Seahawks-Rams 3. Winner of this game will almost certainly be favored in the Super Bowl, especially if the Broncos pull out that win. So last chance to get some plus money on either of them to hoist the Lombardi if you are thinking that's the case. Otherwise, like we said, get the Pats. But not very much movement here. As I mentioned, it's been plus 2.5 since. Totals dropped a point from 47.5. However, that looks to only be on DraftKings. The last I looked, you can still get it 47.5 pretty much everywhere. So if you are looking for the over, make sure you get it there. Get the best number that corresponds to your side of the bet. Fair odds for the Rams would be plus 135 on the money line. They are plus 125, so not really too bad. Minus 135 would be fair for Seattle. So you're actually getting pretty close to the number on both sides, which is not too bad. But no value according to the Dimers model. Anyway, but split the season series between these two. Week 16 game, arguably the best game of the season, came right down to the wire, just like the earlier one, though it was a lot more interesting in the second game. The bizarre 2-point conversion required pretty much for Seattle to win that game. So otherwise it would be Rams 2-0 here. Haven't been underdogs. That's Los Angeles since the last matchup with Seattle, which was only the second time they were all year. So this is pretty rare territory for them. One of the better teams against the spread overall this season, 12-7 in the regular season. So they did not cover versus the Bears or Carolina in the postseason. Both of those, obviously, they were favored though. Excellent defenses by both these sides all year. Seattle led the league overall DVOA. Stafford was one of the few players who actually found success against their passing defense. Did so with to the tune of 400-something yards in Week 16. And I don't think we need to overly dissect the differences between Sam Darnold and Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford, who, as you always say, Greg, you think about the QB matchup at the heart of things, but in the head-to-head between the two this season, it's pretty staggering. Darnold has 14 picks this year. 6 of them were against the Rams. Matt Stafford tossed 5 touchdowns without a turnover playing the Seahawks. So comfort-wise against the opponent, while the Seahawks may have come away with that victory in a huge high-scoring battle that the Rams did not have Devontae Adams in, the quarterback play could not be further apart in this matchup. So
I love that stat. It's also scary as someone who is going to back the Rams. Spoiler alert for 20 minutes from now. But I just like it. I think Stafford has dominated the thing I care most about in a high leverage game. Whose quarterback is going to rise to the occasion? Who isn't? I still don't trust Arnold. He's been fine in this playoff run, but I've seen enough in big games from him that at some point he's just liable to have a 4-interception game. The scary part of this is he's already done that against the Rams, and they've essentially played even in spite of it. So if there was ever a team that could survive that type of performance, it clearly is Seattle. That's the most ominous part of this to me. But I do think you're right. It bodes well just in terms of, this is who I'm up against. Sam Darnold's going to be shaky a little bit, I think, in terms of nerves. Matt Stafford, I don't think, could be more excited for this opportunity.
Yeah. The QB, it's going to be the Rams defense, really. I think that's going to be what decides this, because the end of game issues continue to plague them on that side of the ball. It's not really the offense that's had trouble scoring. Once, maybe they've had a couple droughts, but they ultimately do pretty well. They do put the games away for the most part. But, we saw it with the Bears. They got away with it at the end, despite playing a much better game defensively down the stretch than they had versus Carolina and in the end of the regular season. So if the defense plays really well, it's kind of hard, or doesn't at least let Seattle hang in there. It's a little hard to envision Sam Darnold outplaying Matt Stafford and that being what decides the game. My personal leans would be Rams 2.5 and the over, given that I do think we're going to see something closer offensively to that last game. But 50-50 from the model on both. So if you're looking for value, this is not where you would find it.
Yeah, this is going to be a play your gut game and know that you're paying a little bit of a tax, I feel like, on either way. Shout out to the odds makers who got this one dead right.
Again.
No opportunity for value. Let's look at the run game next. We know that Kyron Williams will be heavily involved, and we know that Kenneth Walker will be heavily involved. But Corum's been a guy that we've looked to at times this year in terms of both projections that might surprise you and also touchdown value. Is there anything this week?
Yeah, not really, which is, I mean, let me check his props in a second because we did have a little value on his over the other day, but nothing touchdown-wise for either of them, which we have seen in the playoffs. It's just there's almost no touchdown value in both of these games in the conference championships. But the first 2 rounds, we saw plenty of touchdown edges. So a little bit of a different story here. Kyron Williams projecting for 61 yards, 44% TD probability. He hit 70 and 91 versus the Seahawks this year. Was very good last week. So I certainly think that's in play for him. I think you can get just about even money for him at 60. Actually, I have in my notes that I had plus money, but that looked a little different when I was going through some SGP work earlier. But almost even money on Blake Corum to get 30 plus, projecting for 34. Let me check in the props real quick. We saw him the other day. Here he is for receiving for 1 reception. Yeah, I don't see him for the over rushing yards anymore. Might be getting a lower line because he was basically non-existent last week after being pretty heavily featured down the stretch. So I didn't really know what to make of that. If it was just because Kyron was rushing well and had the hot hand, or if there was more to it than that. But probably not touching Corum personally. I do like Kyron on the ground. We have him, pretty close to his line, but he's looked really good and found success against Seattle twice so far this season. On the Seahawks side of things, obviously we talked about this with Kenneth Walker, still the only active RB on the roster. Might see George Jelani in here come Sunday. If he is active, I imagine he's going to slot in above Shaheed and Darnold, but probably not for very many yards, maybe a handful, but Kenneth Walker right now, 89 rushing yards, 25 receiving yards. And I do like that second angle because he caught 2 for 27 and 3 for 64 in both games versus LA this season. Kyle Monangai caught 4 for 36 last week. They may try and go after that early, especially with him being the featured back and not having to worry about splitting with Charbonnet. And if there is a backup, I kind of doubt that they would feature him in the same type of Charbonnet role early in a game. Probably save him for third downs, maybe pass blocking situations, given that Kenneth Walker wasn't as good as Charbonnet in those. But I'll probably try and go after that early with Kenneth Walker. He's a plus 127 for 5 receiving yards in the first quarter. So, and we've seen him recently be used that way in the first, go right after teams. So, especially in that 49ers game at the end of the regular season, I had like 25 in the first quarter. Yeah, that's the run game right there. I do have one more thing here. I forgot about this. I had it in a separate page of my notes, but I would love to find a rushing line on Shaheed. You can't really find anything yards wise, at least as far as a ladder or anything, but I was just looking at his stats because we had value on him for over 0.5 rushing yards. 7 games with New Orleans, he had 1 carry. He had 1 game with a carry with New Orleans. 7 games, including last week, he has had a carry with Seattle. So entirely different role featured in terms of being utilized as a runner. Only had 1 or 2 carries in the games where he actually got one, but he does have 2 rushes of 30 plus yards this season. The model does find an edge in his over 0.5 over 0.5 rushing yards, which is the lowest you can obviously find the line, but notably it is 2.5 where I've seen it. So over 0.5 rushing yards, 73.8%, minus 145. So a little juicy, but a 14.6% edge there, projected for 8.4. So if you could find 5 plus or 10 plus, it's probably a fun play to make. He could break it in one big play. He's done it a few times this year. He's over the 0.5 line in 7 of 8 games where he actually has a carry. So, if he's getting the carry, he's going to get that. So it's minus 145. He had 2 carries, I believe, last week. I should have put that down, but simply something I would like to have found available is like a 5, 10, 15 rushing yards ladder for Shaheed.
Yeah, I see the vision with Shaheed for sure. I mean, the Mr. Explosive play. It feels like every single game since he's joined Seattle, he's breaking the game open somehow, one way or another. So I like the shout there. That would be a fun way to go about this. Shaheed kind of blurs the lines between they're going to use him in the run game, the special teams game, or the receiving game. But let's look at some other receiving options here. You are looking to the stars, Smith-Njigba and Puka Nacua. That's top of the card for you?
Yeah, it cashed in the Week 16 game. I'm going to go after it again. 90-plus yards each and a touchdown. We've got it projected with the yards, 95 for Nacua, 93 for Jackson Smith-Njigba, 43% touchdown for JSN, 41% for Puka. This is a huge game, the biggest game for these teams at this point in the season. They're going to look for their big players who have made big plays all season. They're the offensive player of the year favorites. I just don't see how they're not heavily featured. Plus 750 for that little 4-legger. One I'm happy to ride into the sunset with if that's the hill I'm gonna lose on for the week. But I just don't see how they're not, and they're their top projected guys, so I'm happy to ride with them. And we've often seen a slightly bigger discrepancy between Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua for the top touchdown probability, and it's a little bit closer than usual in this one. So granted, there was no Devontae Adams in that shootout game. Projected for 54 yards and a 43% TD probability here. Wouldn't be surprised to see them both very active, but I mean, it's Puka. He's going to do Puka things, I think. Came up just shy of the 90 in their first meeting, and JSN went over, I think he hit 100 in that game. So positive trends in the 2 games in the previous meetings for these guys. So that's what I'm definitely looking at. I think I even talked about that on Tuesday. I've had my eye on that since this matchup was circled. Tertiary pass catchers for the Rams gets a little dicey. They're all pretty close projection-wise. I will say Higbee has been very clutch since returning. Long catches of 21, 27, and 36 in his 3 games. He is plus 170 for his longest reception to be 15-plus yards, which is something that I've worked into my little play of the week, but he's been really, really consistent with getting a chunk play in his usage this season. He was banged up, missed a bunch of games, but even earlier in the year, he was regularly tallying a play of 15, 20 yards or so. So certainly an angle to look at. On the wide receiver side for the Seahawks, behind JSN, it gets a little murky, clouds things even further because Cooper Kupp, who's been, very sparingly used, I guess, had one of his best games of the season last week in a game that Darnold barely had to pass and do anything. So not really sure what we're going to get in this regard. Pretty minimally involved by him against the Rams in both games. Caught 6 of 11 targets for 62 yards and no score. It's difficult to get a grasp on who's next up in this. I guess by, if you're just going by who's done what, it's this season, it's Cooper Kupp. At 1,200 yards behind Jackson Smith-Njigba as the second highest receiver in this offense. So, it seems unlikely that Kupp would have 3 more or less duds against his former team in one season, especially 2 at home, but just not a lot to go on positively from the pass catchers, except the aforementioned Rashid Shaheed, who I will shout this out thanks to the projections and another edge. But we have him projected for 31 receiving yards and 2.2 receptions. His line is 1.5 receptions. He caught 5 for 68 versus the Rams as a Saint, then 2 for 27 in his first meeting as a member of Seattle, and then only 1 target in the Week 16 matchup. So he's actually his 4th game against the Rams this year coming up. But yeah, we project his over, which is, I think, 25.5. It was. And he has 2 games with Seattle where he recorded yard totals of 67 and 74 yards. We know he's an absolute burner and makes big plays. I think 50, 60, 70 might be worth a little sprinkle at plus 322, plus 514, and plus 810 for those intervals. I'm definitely putting a unit on 30 plus for him since we have that in his projections. And I think I will dabble on those other ladders, because that's basically one big play for him. And I mean, just based on what we've seen from the other receivers, it's wide open for who can take the second spot in that offense.
I was going to say you're always one snap away, basically, and it's worth a shot. I love that vision. I'm in. I feel like Shaheed has the most upside as far as individual options go, past the big favorites here. For touchdowns, there's a name that we talked about mid-season getting a big opportunity, and he's hung around all week as our value touchdown play here. Kanata Mumfield. This is one that will be on my card. I got to be honest with you. 25-1. You've got a 2.7% edge. We've got just over a 6% probability he finds the end zone. That's obviously not the likeliest outcome. Of course, we don't even know how much he'll be on the field, but I will tell you this, McVay's offense, when they get in the red zone, they give the quote-unquote random guys shots. They have a lot of scripted plays that maybe it's almost like specialists come in and we're trying to get this guy open, and it's one look for Stafford. And I just wouldn't be surprised if one of those options is Mumfield and he's the forgotten guy while everybody's staring at Puka defensively.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong at all. You constantly are seeing the Fergusons, the Parkinsons, the Xavier Smiths get in the end zone when they're down there. I mean, yeah, I feel like you not have to play it, but a nice little 0.1 unit or so. I mean, 25-1 for an anytime touchdown is ridiculous. Obviously he's very sparingly used. He's got one touchdown this year. His best game came without Devontae Adams. It was versus the Seahawks in week 16, but he's pretty sparingly used. So it's the definition of a long shot, both in odds and reality. However, sometimes you take a shot on those plays, and the only way to win long-term with straights is by taking valuable, smart wagered plays. So, maybe a very small unit on here would do a lot of weight, heavy lifting for the whole weekend. So, anytime TD wise, nothing really changed here since the other day, though. Walker's the only one over 50%. But as we mentioned on Tuesday, well below his implied probability, though he has dropped from -175 to -155, but still well over what we would put him at, which should be practically +100. And he is the only guy, though, I think, at minus odds in this game. So even if the value isn't there, you're not getting heavily taxed on the favorites for the Rams, or JSN as the second favorite for the Seahawks.
Yep. Yeah. Appropriately priced game all around is what it seems like. There's just hard to find too many edges, even touchdown props this week outside of the Mumfield play and your proposed Shaheed ladder, which I really like. I feel like this is going to be a high on the entertainment scale game for me, maybe a low on the bet volume game for me, but I will be playing Rams outright. I don't know if I said that already. This was the pre-playoff Super Bowl pick for both of us. We're catching them at plus money. We've laid out all the reasons why I doubt Sam Darnold. We are one Kenneth Walker hit to the head. I don't want that to happen, but we're one tunnel trip away, Dave, from this entire game relying on Sam Darnold out-dueling Matt Stafford. To me, that alone is worth a little edge at plus 130 on the money line.
I'm going to have to get out there and play running back if Ken Walker gets injured. And my anytime TD odds do not have an edge. So for the Seahawks' sake and the bettors, they need Ken Walker.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's as in-depth as we can go on both of the championship games. We will be looking forward to recapping these next week. And of course, we'll have a bunch of Super Bowl prep content over the next couple of weeks for you as well.